We are here because the defendant murdered 2 individuals.
The state says ynwmelly is a cold-blooded killer, while the defense says the state can't prove it.
Why he would commit such a heinous crime against his own 2 best friends for no reason.
I mean, that's the thing that everybody wanted to know, like, from the jump, right?
We are looking at the top 11 moments from week 1.
It just don't make sense why somebody would just randomly kill 2 of their best friends.
ynwmelly's legal name is Jamel Demons. He faces 2 counts of first-degree murder for the death of 2 lifelong friends.
Alright, so this video right here is a recap of like the 11 like top moments of the first week of Melly's case. And as you know, Melly goes by Jamel Demons, and he's been accused of murdering 2 of his best friends, ynwsakchaser and Juvy.
Thomas went by ynwjuvy, and Williams went by ynwsakchaser. A 4th member, Cortland Henry, went by ynwbortland. Prosecutors say on October 26, 2018, the 4 men left a recording studio together at 3:19 a.m. They're seen on surveillance video getting into a gray SUV. More than an hour later, Bortland showed up at an emergency room with Juvy and ynwsakchaser in the SUV. They were dead. Melly was not in the vehicle. Bortland claimed they had been the victims of a drive-by shooting, but he didn't have a scratch on him. Bortland is charged separately. Melly faces the possibility of the death penalty if convicted, and he's the first person in the state of Florida to face the possibility of the death penalty under a new lower threshold. A recent change in Florida law allows a jury to impose the death penalty by a vote of 8-4. Up until April of this year, that vote had to be unanimous, 12-0.
On October 26th of 2018, this defendant shot and killed 2 of his friends. He killed Christopher Thomas and Anthony Williams. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to set out the story and how this unfolded and lay out what I expect the evidence will show during the course of this trial. First thing you are going to hear is that at 4:35 a.m. on October 26th of 2018, Cortland Henry, the co-defendant, shows up at Memorial Miramar Hospital. In his car, he has 2 dead bodies. In the front passenger seat is Anthony Williams. In the rear passenger seat is Christopher Thomas. They are dead, they are riddled with bullets, and the car is full of blood. Christopher Thomas is sitting in the rear. There is multiple defects to his body. Anthony Williams, who is sitting in the front, has 2 major injuries. Officer Jessica Amangor is working a detail at the hospital. Cortland Henry runs in, starts telling a story about a drive-by, quote unquote drive-by. One individual, and specifically, sends out, and I want to quote the message exactly that you will hear, and says, right after this, "Yo, homie, you good? Let me know something." And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is where context matters. What does that mean? If you work at Google and you say, "My whole floor is coding," that's a good thing. If you work at Broward General Hospital and you say, "My whole floor is coding," that is a bad thing. The context around the messages matters. So in the context of this message, this individual is reaching out, asking if Mr. Demons is good, after he's been tagged in multiple social media posts about this drive-through, this shooting. And Mr. Demons responds very succinctly, "I did that."
But how she know that's what that person talking about? Like, could just be casually asking if he good about something else. You never know. Right now she's speculating, she assuming that.
Shh. That's the first indication that they're just guessing and don't know what they're talking about. That, ladies and gentlemen, by itself is reasonable doubt. Why he would commit such a heinous crime against his own two best friends for no reason. What happened here is that the lead detective, Detective Melly, saw a video of Mr. Demons getting into a car 40 plus minutes before bodies were found in that car. And then he discovered that Mr. Demons was a rising star. And from that point on, he decided he's the only person that could have committed this crime.
That's also speculation. I mean, you can't really prove that per se.
Because if you're involved in prosecuting a star, you become a star. This was his big break. And he had tunnel vision. He zeroed in on this person, this young man, as the only possible perpetrator of that crime, to the exclusion of all other leads and evidence. 3 years after arresting this young man and sticking him in a cell, the state looks at its case and says, oh man, this looks a little incompetent. Miramar police seems to have botched this investigation, and they call the Broward Sheriff's Office and ask them to come and look at the investigation upon which this entire prosecution rests. And he looks at it, and he says he instantly knew he had to start from scratch. I think his words were, it was the worst thing I had seen in my life.
So I'm sitting at the ER desk, and he comes running inside to my left, so the pediatric entrance, and he's very excited, like heightened state of alert, something traumatic or something just happened. And he's like, hey, they just shot my car, they shot my friends, like I need help, can you come help me? That was the initial interaction.
And based on his statement, how do you proceed?
So as soon as I walk out the ER and I see the vehicle had multiple bullet holes on the side, I immediately radio in for additional resources because that's beyond my scope of I can handle by myself. And then asking, hey, I need additional officers, as soon as possible, urgently to respond to the hospital. I have a vehicle that's been involved in the shooting. I can see the multiple bullet holes. And then looking inside the vehicle, I can see 2 unresponsive males. So I advise I have possible dead persons as well.
Was the crime scene also inside the hospital where Mr. Portland Henry was?
Yeah, the whole ER was shut down.
Okay, so in other words, no one was allowed in that area that we saw.
Unless they were needing emergency care, that would go to another room, but the ER was shut down.
So I'm real clear. Do you know the names of all, did you document the names of all the officers and detectives that responded?
No, I didn't.
So we're perfectly clear. Could you stand up? You didn't see this young man getting out of the Jeep at any time, correct?
No, sir.
Could you tell us, beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt after all of this examination, how many firearms created these casings and projectiles?
So what I can say is that one firearm fired the casings, so one firearm produced the cartridge cases that were submitted. And as far as the projectiles are concerned, I can say that 2 of them came from one firearm, and then the other ones could have come from the same firearm, but I cannot conclusively say that there was one.
Okay, so there could be more than one firearm that created all of these items, correct?
As far as the projectiles, yes.
Okay, fair enough. Now, after you did all of this analysis, were you able to determine what gun was used to create these projectiles and casings?
No, in the absence of a firearm, I cannot conclusively say it was one or the other.
And if the shooting occurred inside a car, for instance, would the arm length matter of the so-called shooter or shooters,
It could.
and whether or not the person was leaning in one direction?
Sure. Yeah, we're working in a very small environment.
Okay, so there's a lot of variables that one must take into consideration
Yes.
before you say where the gun was or where the shooter or shooters were when they fired this firearm.
Right.
As a manager of the Broward Sheriff's Office tool and what's the title? Tool and
Fireman tool unit.
okay. You certainly would want to take all those variables in before you told this jury or any jury.
Yeah, scientifically, I would want to make sure that I'm accounting for as many variables as possible whenever rendering an opinion.
Otherwise, it would be just a guess, an
Yes.
estimate, right?
Right. I want to give a scientifically valid opinion.
You got the sample from Miramar Police Department,
Yes.
specifically Detective Moretti directed it to you.
Yes.
And when we talk about GSR, or gunshot residue, you're aware that GSR can be found on clothes, right?
Yes, that's possible.
Did Detective Moretti send you any clothes of Cortland Henry?
He did not.
He didn't send you any of the clothes?
No.
Did you know that the clothes of Cortland Henry were collected by the Miramar Police Department?
Objection calls for speculation outside the scope of the warrant.
Well, I know that calls for speculation. If she knows she can answer the question, overruled.
Were you aware that the Miramar Police Department collected Cortland Henry's clothes?
No, I was not aware of it.
Good morning, Ms. Holmes.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Not good.
Are you cold?
No, I'm just, you know, I don't feel comfortable.
Are you nervous?
I feel threatened.
Remember speaking with law enforcement in December of 2018?
I remember speaking with them, but I don't remember what they look like. I don't remember their names, but I do remember talking to someone.
Okay, so Ms. Holmes, I want to ask you, were you honest and truthful with law enforcement when you spoke with them?
I would hope so. I mean, it was 2018. I went through a lot in that year, so I'm not sure where my mindset was at that time.
Did you lie to law enforcement?
I would hope not. But I don't remember what I said back. It was like 5 years ago.
Oh, of course. I understand it's been a long time.
I do remember that they kind of bullied me and threatened my daughter to take her to jail for accessory after the fact. I do remember that.
Yes. And in terms of the statements that you made about what happened,
Yeah.
you don't have any recollection of
No.
that. Did you read this statement multiple times?
I looked at it and
Did the prosecutor just glance past that? I totally think they did.
I just didn't call it, and yeah.
And so you indicated you hoped you were truthful with law enforcement.
Yes, I did.
I have to ask you to be more definitive. Were you truthful?
I don't remember what I said to them back then, so if I was to tell you something now, I could be lying. I don't want to lie on the stand because you're going to take me to jail. So I'm saying what you want me to say.
I do not want you to say anything. I want you to tell the truth.
Okay, that's what I'm doing.
Okay. In terms of have you ever said a statement have you ever made a statement to the effect of you were told to quit your job and the defense would take care of us?
Of the judge.
No.
Excuse me.
The defense? No.
Much comes out.
And we have another motion.
Last question. I made a determination that was an inappropriate, improper question, and the way it was phrased was totally improper, and therefore I sustain the objection. I am instructing you that you will disregard the question. All right? I'm going to ask counsel to rephrase the question. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I haven't asked anything yet.
Ask your question.
When you first took the stand, you said, I feel threatened.
Yes, sir, I do.
Who do you feel threatened by?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Christine Bradley, the prosecutor's office.
This prosecutor.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Demons has been prejudiced. This jury sat there and watched this fiasco unfold with at least 10, maybe 15 sidebars after every 2 questions, with the implications that were being all predicated on the implications and the inadmissible testimony that Ms. Bradley herself read into and spoke into the record. And for that reason, we think that it was deliberate, it is highly prejudicial. This jury has been tainted, and we move for a mistrial.
Judge, in my entire career, I've never heard the state imply with no evidence whatsoever that the defense team would take care of this witness.
Judge, with regards to that, the statements that were in the records are what was used as impeachment, where it says they said that they were going to take care of us. Defense read into it and implied it meant there, it was never said the defense team in any way, shape, or form.